Well, hey everybody. My name is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend Mateo Galiz. This is episode 42, aka the Jason David episode. And Jason David played defensive back for the Colts, wore number 42, and won a Super Bowl in 2006. It
Yeah,
was Peyton Manning and them. Um, and yeah, we I said something on social media today. I feel like a good time to start's now. If you're watching this on YouTube, from now on, you will get the first upload and the raw upload of our podcast. And we kind of feel like a little shift in gears could help us, given the Indiana Pacers' recent success,
yeah,
sort of a shock uh, to the sporting world. We feel like it'd be in our best interest not only to gussy it up, become a little more professional, but maybe we ought to also talk about the Pacers. It's probably a good idea. So we'll keep the name the Coltist. We'll try to work with Stampede Blue on posting our podcast on the Stampede Blue Podcast Network. But we see a lane here where we could possibly have a two sport podcast talking about the Colts and Pacers. So if you like
yeah.
the
Indiana
Indianapolis
sports.
Colts, the Indiana Pacers specifically, that's what we're going to talk about. Um, and we figure a good approach um, in terms of how we decide what we're going to talk about first is we're going to close the podcast talking about the team that has the next game so that when you are finishing listening to the podcast tomorrow, there's a game tomorrow night. For example, the Pacers play tomorrow. And if you like the content that we produce, please like the YouTube video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you get an opportunity to rate this podcast elsewhere, wherever it is that you hear podcasts, please do so other people will hear us. Right, Mateo?
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say that I'm really excited to talk about the Pacers because, like I was saying to you before we started recording, I actually started following the Pacers before the Colts, and I'm a Colts fan because of the Pacers.
Hmm.
Because the Pacers, they share the same. I'm from Argentina, so it's not like I have like a solid reason to become a fan of the Pacers. It was more like, okay, this team has the same colors as my football team down here, so I will root for them. I also like that they are a small market team. They are not they are never the favorites to win it all. They are never the favorites to land the big free agents or where the superstars go or the fashion and the flashes. And I
Yeah.
like that. I respect that. I really like the Pacers. I like their idea of the team.
Hmm.
And after enduring, I believe the world is enduring the past couple of seasons without any young talent. Without Paul George leaving, then Victor Oladipo becoming the face of the franchise, and him leaving,
Right.
and then it's okay, Sabonis and Turner and DJ Warren becoming, basically Michael Jordan in the bubble,
Yeah.
and now they left. And I'm really excited for the future. I think we have probably ever since I started following the Pacers, it's the time where I'm the most excited about the future, and I'm like, okay, we have guys that want to stay here, that want to develop here,
Right.
so it's an exciting time to be a Pacers fan right now, and I'm really excited.
For those that are not used to us talking about the Indiana Pacers, Indiana Pacers are obviously Indiana's NBA team, but to the shock of many, to cut to the chase, in their last 10 games are 8-2, with arguably the youngest roster and rotation in the NBA that really only includes a handful of veterans. It really is a very, very young team. And the surprise,
Yeah,
the crown jewel of the NBA right now is Ben Matherin. And
yeah,
I want to say the kid's been in double digits every game he's played. He's instant offense off the bench. And when you look and you see, oh, the Pacers have got up on somebody, and you look at what the difference in this contest is, frequently it is Ben Matherin. And obviously there's other guys that are playing outstanding. You sit here and gush at the squad, the way they've all played, but he's a rookie, right? He's
Yeah.
not a second, third year guy that's had time to get in and get his feet wet. And he's kind of come in and obviously, like I said, there's a lot going on with the Pacers positive, but like we said, we want to finish talking about the Pacers. So let's start by talking about the Colts, who host the Pittsburgh Steelers here,
Yeah.
week 12, Monday night
Let's
football.
get the negative out of the way before we can start.
Exactly. I'm like, dude, we could really,
Let's
really have
get
some
this.
fun with the Pacers, but let's get the Colts out of the way.
Yeah.
So that the people from Stampede Blue that are going to be the first people to hear this new split podcast aren't going to be like, oh man, they're going to sit here and talk about the Pacers. I'm going to turn into someone else. So let's talk about the Colts and what's going on here. So obviously, in about the last 5 weeks, and this is obviously, Mateo, you and I have spoke since, but this is the first time my face has been on a camera since Frank Reich got fired.
Yeah.
Other than doing like a post game wrap. So the last time you and I were on a podcast, I sat here and said I feel terrible calling for another man's job, but at this point, like, what are we doing, right? And
Yeah.
then he got fired after the next game. So while it never feels good in that situation, like I said, I don't feel comfortable calling for someone else's job, but like it's just felt like writing was on the wall, and then it happened, right? So let's just tear that Band-Aid off, right? And then obviously they hired Jeff Saturday, to the chagrin of some,
Yeah.
much to the mum of many.
Exaggerated. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people said nothing. So let's just get that out of the way. First of all, you have your people that like had their dumb opinions, but lots of people didn't say anything about this at all. And I think in light of the Colts firing Marcus Brady, who doesn't appear to have been the problem, and then trading
Nah.
away Naheem Hines, who he don't appear to have been the problem, and then obviously firing Frank Reich. And when the reality is, I was thinking about this before you and I started talking today. What did we think was going to happen when we had no stability at left tackle last year, and then our attempt to cover that up was Pryor and Raymond, right?
Yeah.
Like, what do we think was going to happen? When you have no protection backside to a right-handed quarterback, he has until he gets to the top of his drop to get rid of the ball, and frequently has to get rid of it before he gets to the top of his drop, and in just about any situation, because cannot rely on the left tackle at all to protect his
Yeah.
blind side at all. So a lot of people, for the record, have talked about the quarterbacks of the Colts, and it's not that the quarterbacks of the Colts are the best in the league. So that's not what I'm saying, but they're certainly quite a bit above reproach in that they have absolutely no time to diagnose the defense, and the ball just has to get out of your hand. And again, it's kind of the league right now. If you watch more than just the
Yeah.
Colts,
Yeah.
lots of teams are having trouble protecting the quarterback, and so it's either you employ a athlete at that position, which for the
Yeah.
record is why Jim Irsay was like, put Sam Ellinger in, like, see if there's
Yeah.
some
And
way
it's
to.
not like
But
Sam Ellinger is that big of an athlete. It's not like he's that athletic.
Mhm.
But I mean, when you look at the teams on offense that are doing their job today, the only offenses in the league that are being serviceable right now.
Yeah.
As we said, in prior episodes, we are witnessing the death of the traditional pocket passer.
Yeah.
And you look at the teams, that have an offense that can move the ball up and down the field at will, and you see, quarterbacks like Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert. These are all guys that can move the ball with their feet.
Yeah.
Also like Josh Allen, like
Yeah.
everyone, like there is not a single, I believe, like all the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL right now
Our
have the
athletes,
ability. Yeah,
except
are
for Kirk
athletes.
Cousins.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins, when you look at him, you have to say, okay, this is an outlier because of their running game, their
Mhm.
offensive line,
Mhm.
and their wide receivers. It's like I believe that you put Matt Ryan in that situation, and
He probably isn't losing
performs.
games.
Yeah, he performs similar to that of Kirk Cousins, what he's doing right now.
Agree.
So that's my way of thinking. Like you just have like in order to win with a quarterback that is not an athlete like Matt Ryan is,
Mhm.
every single other thing in your offense has to be great.
Yes.
You have to have
Everything else,
great
everything has to
protection.
be
Yeah,
clicking
you have
because
to have great
you can no
protection.
longer you can
To
no
have a
longer fight
running
the
game.
7-step drop. You can't do
Yeah,
that anymore.
and you need wide receivers that can produce. And we don't have that. You need an impeccable protection, and we don't have that. You need to have at least an abundance of weapons in the passing game, which we also don't have. So you can't run your offense like that and not have an athlete in there.
No.
That's
And
why I think that blowing it up and starting again was definitely the right call.
yeah.
And while I respect Matt Ryan, and I honestly believe that he's a much better quarterback than Sam Ellinger is right now, and he's a great guy, and I believe he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, why not start Sam Ellinger and see what he can bring? Like
Hmm.
it's not like the offense was particularly amazing or lighting it up with Matt Ryan.
Hmm.
If you ask me, to me it just seems like they are just trying to cruise along to the finish line this year without bringing up any major attention on them. Like
Hmm.
Matt Ryan will keep you irrelevant. No one will talk about the Colts. Will just coast towards perhaps, I don't know, 6, 7 wins,
Hmm.
where you're not the worst team in the NFL, but also not reaching the playoffs.
Yeah.
Then reshuffle once you enter the off season and start again.
But I still think quite a bit of the teams in the NFL are bad and much worse than the Colts are. And I think the Colts are in a unique position. And this is going to piss a ton of people off because they're going to be like, oh my God, are you serious? Let whoever will may go and understand that you can fix an offensive line in a draft in an offseason. And this defense has been elite. And Matt Ryan is the guy. Lots of the people that play on this offense are otherwise very young, and you're going to see them for the next 2 or 3 years. So get used to it, Colts fans. Whether it works or not, whether it wins or not, I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah,
You have to think about wins above replacement if you're looking to move on from Matt Ryan at this point. And when you think about what's going on with the Colts offensively and who you want back there when they're healthy, obviously Matt Ryan's the answer, right? When Matt Ryan has a grade 2 AC joint separation, right, and does not need to be playing because he's separated his shoulder and he's injured and out, right, and Sam Ellinger comes in and the Colts don't change their offensive style at all, and it told me, you're like, oh, you're in for a rough ride.
yeah,
They figure out what they're doing. They just try to stop that. You have no offense. And then very next week, after they move on from Marcus Brady and Frank Reich's calling the plays, it's not that firing someone does not fix a problem. Neither does benching a healthy Matt Ryan. So that isn't what happened. And,
yeah,
and I wish people would let go of this. Matt Ryan did not get benched for play. Matt Ryan got benched because he's injured. And they elevated Sam Ellinger from practice squad to starter because there's absolutely no sense if Matt Ryan can't get it done. There's no sense in putting Nick Foles back there because they're the same person. They're the same body. They're the same arm. I promise you. What Sam Ellinger is, though, is like 2/10 of a second faster than a 40. And when he has to step
yeah.
up and has to make what's called
He can do. Yeah,
an A gap escape, which is where the quarterback has to go downfield, he has the potential to get past that first guy that lays hands on him and then make something positive happen, possibly even get rid of the ball. Matt Ryan's not like that. It's like I've said in past podcasts, where Matt Ryan is really more like paper mache. He is like more of a traditional drop back passer. He is someone that you do
yeah,
have to develop an offense around because he does have the smarts and he does have a little bit left in his arm. He's got a little bit of spice left in the rock, so he can still sling it.
yeah,
He's got 2 3 years left doing it. It's just that you have to wonder, because football is a game of attrition. I've been saying that for a while. So you have to wonder, like, what will this lackluster season cost? And it's already cost Shaq Leonard out for the season. Has
sí,
has a back injury, at back surgery. He's out for the season, right? Um, you forcing offensive line changes. I think they still ran out a new offensive line last week,
Yeah.
right? So clearly, for the record, just like I said, firing Frank Reich didn't fix anything, just like hiring Jeff Saturday didn't fix stuff,
Yeah. One
right?
fix. Yeah.
Yeah, they played great in that first road game against the Las Vegas Raiders, where they had all the nervous energy in the world going against a depleted Las Vegas Raiders team. And yes, you won by 5. Yep, you won that game. Cool.
See.
They
Yes.
might win 2 more games this year. Let's be realistic. When you're missing guys like a Shaq Leonard and a left tackle, I'll just stop there. You aren't over a 500 ball club when you can't force turnovers on defense and you can't run your whole offense because you cannot no longer run play action. You can't run 5 to 7 step drops. You can't let receivers get into their routes and develop. None of that. None of that's happening. You're not
Yeah.
running your full
And
offense.
I would even argue, that the left tackle is even more important than Shaq Leonard because if you look like, for example, at the Eagles game, the defense more than did their job. They held the
Mhm.
Eagles to their lowest. The Eagles never scored under 21 points this year.
Yep.
Haven't scored less than that the entire season, and you hold them to 17.
Mhm.
And the defense gave the offense, 4 short fields to work with, and the offense only scored 6 points in from those. And you're like, I don't think like no matter how good the defense is, defense doesn't win games in today's games NFL.
No, it
You
does. It's not a football thing. Defense is not how you win games anymore. Offense is how you win games.
Yeah,
Like it's like I've been telling people for a while. I sat in a press conference that 2 seasons ago with Nick Saban, and the first question he was asked is like the guy asked the same question every year, I guess. So it'd been like some odd years in a row he'd been asked this question: if you could change anything, what would you change? And he says, I'd have been fired
yeah,
after last year if I'm making the decisions. Why? Because I have the way I do football. And so Nick Saban is the head coach at Alabama Crimson Tide. It's like one of the best college football, probably one of the best football organizations ever. Okay. And
yeah,
he's the head coach. Okay. This is a guy I'm idolizing, right? And he says, I have a way I like to do it. Single wing, a lot of motion, a lot of heavy run, test them
yeah,
vertically, play great defensive special teams, yada yada. Recruit the best in the country, yada yada.
yeah,
And he said, well, the problem is my style is losing 2 games a year because there are teams out here whose entire premise on offense is score in 3 plays. And then they play just as good at defense and special teams as we do, except every time they get the football, they score touchdown. And we don't do that. We don't his style, which is the NFL style, right? Which is develop a consistent, readily available to you run game that you can absolutely run the ball on any down at any point in time because you have elite offensive linemen, right? That are incredible
yeah,
athletes that are getting to the second level and beyond whenever you need it and are opening up lanes that look like craters, right? Right? When you can do that, you get the league's leading rusher. We did that last year. We missed that year that we had a great offensive line. Carson Wentz tried to be a hero and tried to play hero ball, and ended up he didn't have the weapons to do that. And then he ended up getting traded. Right? We get Matt Ryan in here, and ultimately he's not an athlete like you need. You need somebody that can make a throw outside of what happens after they get to the top of their drop and he isn't wide open. You can't stand there anymore. You can't pat the ball. There's none of that. You got time. That guy that's bending the corner on you, that's like 260 pounds. He wants to hit you before you get the ball out. Right. So he's trying to hurt you.
yeah,
There's this, and the thing about it is more often than not, so just to flip it, by the way, to talk about the other side of the ball when it comes to pass rush, here's what's really scary. And we haven't gotten to this yet in the NFL. I still see defensive pass rushers pulling up on quarterbacks that are still have the ball in their hand. And I'm not just talking about the Colts. I'm not talking about at the NFL level, at the college level, at the high school level. I'm telling you, there are guys that have guys dead to rights and pull up. And you're like, what the fuck? Like you can't do that at the NFL level anymore. And so when you flip it back around and you watch Matt Ryan drop back and get to the top of his drop, and he stands there for longer than 1.2 seconds, and that ball doesn't come out of his hand, he's dead. And so the play is over, and it's either a throwaway every time or a sack, right? Or a ball gets deflected. It doesn't end up being positive. So if that's going to happen the rest of the season, because now you get the Steelers, right? That's a good defensive front, right? They're going to
Hmm.
give you pressure, right? They don't have to blitz a lot, right? So I look to another low scoring affair. I don't know that the Colts are going to get beat by a rookie at home, right? Because it is Pickett, right? So there's that hope, right? But that does not, just because it's Kenny Pickett doesn't make me think that the Steelers are any
Yeah, it's
lesser
so yeah.
lesser than home.
You also have to, yeah, hopefully for the Steelers, if they're smart, it's TJ Watt lining up against Bernard Raymond.
Right.
That's a matchup. Yeah, that's a matchup you don't want. Like, perhaps he will be mostly lined up against Braden Smith, and that's a matchup that I will really like watching because Braden Smith has been I think the best offensive lineman this year for the Colts. But if he's placed in front of Bernard Raymond, then it could get really ugly.
And I mean, the more you see him at Pryor, the less you want to really watch
Nah,
football.
yeah,
Right?
if like it would be, if the game is already lost or already won and we are up or down by more than 25, it would be fun, watching Matt Pryor try and block TJ Watt, like just for shits and giggles. Or it would be basically like if you went up and they said, hey, grab a helmet, grab your pads, and try and block the best and most explosive defensive edge rusher in the NFL. Like, it would be good entertainment. Not for the quarterback who would
I was gonna
probably
say,
get killed. Yeah,
hopefully it's nobody
quarterback's
the
probably
Colts
going.
employ at quarterback. If
Yeah,
that's what we're talking
quarterback
about.
probably getting killed right there,
Yeah.
like most likely.
Hmm.
But for the sake of entertainment, it would be it would be like perhaps the most one-sided matchup I can think about in today's games NFL.
But yeah, I think because we can kind of close on this. I don't think the Colts are in the quarterback market. So I think that there's a lot of people that are talking about the draft for the Colts. Uh, I think the Colts are in a unique position in that, again, I think Matt Ryan's the guy for a while. And I think a lot of the offensive pieces are in place. And there's not really going to be much of an incentive for the Colts to move around other than like they've done in the past. And I hate that it's going to happen again unless Chris Ballard gets fired and the new GM comes in and does some
Yeah,
wildness, which is always possible. So maybe we shouldn't say anything and just say, let's just move on and talk about the Pacers. But a lot of people are talking about like blowing the Colts up. And the reality is, I don't think, maybe it's just me, there's anyone on the Colts that's playing to a level where their value exceeds their paycheck and they're just going to leave and go get more money somewhere else. There might be a couple guys that are on the fringe of the roster that end up playing for someone else next year, but most of this team's intact. Like if so, just so everybody has like a clear expectation of what's going to happen in the rest of the season and down the road. Like the Colts aren't very good. They're going. We're in for a rough ride. This is like we've said. I'm thinking more like 5 wins, right? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like they might get
yeah.
another
It's probably,
game.
yeah,
Yeah.
5, 6 wins,
Yeah.
7 if you're lucky.
Yeah, let's just be realistic. You basically have to run the table to make the playoffs. And no, nope, nope. There's a lot of football teams in the NFL that are better than the Colts right now. And it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Again, the hope is that a lot of these players that we've come to love don't decide I don't want to be a Colt anymore. I don't want to be a part of this organization. Send me somewhere else. And that happens. It happens all the time. So for me, it's like a waiting game, right? When will the Colts be good again?
Yeah,
Right? Because that's really when you watch the Colts play, you're like, yeah, they're bad. You know what I mean? Like you can see it when you watch it. You're seeing the same thing I am. When you're missing field goals, you're a bad football team. Yeah. When you struggle to force turnovers on defense, you're not very good. Yeah. When
Yeah.
you're like 3-5-1 or whatever, 4-5-1, you're like, you're not very good. Your record, you are what your record says. You know. So
Yeah.
I always I always love the conversation about like I've said it too, with the older I get, the more ludicrous I realize this all really is. But people say like it's a game of inches and like it always comes down to like a couple plays and nah, because the pendulum swings in the opposite direction like way harder, right? Like when the Colts lose and you say like, oh, if they kick this field goal, make this field goal, they win this game, right? And the
Yeah.
reality is you go back and watch and it's like, nah, man, there were so many spots where we had opportunities where if we were just better in this at this position, we blow them out. It's not a game. That's how deficient the Colts are, right? Where when you look back on this season, the only thing you get to maintain as a positive memory in terms of how I feel about it, you beat the Chiefs at home, you lost to the Eagles, these are the Chiefs and the Eagles who I expect to play in the Super Bowl. Either I have Chiefs, Eagles, or Bills, 49ers. Kind of depends on which flavor you want. Um, but yeah, I mean, for the Colts, there's no hat hanging on a 1-point loss, right? A loss is a loss, right? Just a win is a win, right? So if we'd have won that game, I'd feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
Good enough to lose is not that's not how you coach them, you know? So that's what the problem is that what what they say to the public to keep you buying tickets and what reality
Yeah.
is are two different things, right? And so while they'll tell you, "Oh, we're not tanking," man, they're telling you, "No, we're not tanking." So you'll come to the Monday night game right after Black Friday, right? You probably be expected to beat the lowest attended Monday night game in the year is the one right after Black Friday. So why not give it to a mid-market team like the Colts so it doesn't hurt the league's bottom line,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, that's just the real is. I'm not upset. Like it's just the realism of of football on the whole, right? It's not that
Yeah.
the defense would be the best in the league if you had a guy that was creating 9 turnovers, right? Like, what are we talking about? Of course, Shaq Leonard elevates your team, but you needed to be the best overall defense to win some of these games, right? And so
Yeah.
you did miss out on what Shaq Leonard had to had to offer. And there's a lot of spots like I'll think about that third and 9 to win the game, and Raymond gets bull rushed and gives up
Yeah.
a
But
sack.
Brandon Graham. Yeah.
And I hope he thinks about that because if he anchors himself, which is the correct term, I went and looked it up. If he anchors himself and does not give up that bull rush, and Matt Ryan gets that pass off and it's complete and whatever, and they kick that field goal and win, think about what the conversations look like. The expectations are out the roof for a Jeff Saturday. That
Yeah.
and this Colts team, and it's like
Yeah. We
that's how
might be
dumb
even
people
talking
are.
about keeping him, like
Yeah.
keeping him throughout the year, through following this season.
I mean, if you think
Instead,
about it,
we are all. Yeah.
they missed that field goal, right? So it's like there were two plays, and then you could just keep going from there. So I know I'm singing to the choir. These are people that watch the same games we watch, see the same film we see, and they're like, man, the Colts could have beat them every play and didn't. And it's like even when you get beat and it's the end, and you're watching Dan Orlovsky breaking it down today, and we're breaking down how the Colts gave up that touchdown run to um, Jalen Hurts. It wasn't just that play, right? There were
Yeah.
plays leading up to that. Um, and like I said, so I don't a lot of people are going to sell you this. We were so close,
Yeah.
and it's not true. Like we were so far away. And instead of selling the other narrative, which is blow it all up. Nope. Understand that like you have a whole bunch of teams around you that are really bad. And a couple of teams are about to lose their older quarterbacks. And lots of teams are going to be quarterback hungry this offseason. And the Colts are going to be again in a position where they're again just going to get gifts in the draft.
Yeah.
And again, if they're just steady, like I said, I hope Chris Ballard don't lose his job. I'm telling you, because I will say this: the Colts are Shaq Leonard and a left tackle away from being one of the better teams in the league. Actually, because you have the league's leading rusher at running back, and if the offensive line's just better on the whole, the back's healthier and better on the whole, right? You think about that and what that does for your team overall. We're thinking more along the lines of an X and 2, X and 3 team, yeah.
Yeah.
So Chris Ballard did do all but that for you, right? He can do all but replace the most important position in your best defensive player in an offseason.
Yeah.
But I think his team building otherwise is excellent. And again, that's one of the narratives that's kind of floating around out there is like Chris Ballard ain't that good at his job. And it's just like, no, man, it's just very difficult to justify overpaying for any one player other than a quarterback. And you can justify overpaying for a quarterback. Look at the numbers and look at the fact that Matt Ryan had like 4 fourth quarter comeback drives already this year before Sunday. Sorry. So it ain't the quarterback isn't something a losing team often gets to say. And it sucks because Colts fans are used to having the guy and winning at quarterback. And it's just now we got the guy and it ain't going to work out a bunch. It's going to not work out
Yeah.
a lot. And I think that's just the harsh reality for this year. And it's okay, man. It's not the end of the world. A very smart person told me that you should not derive like happiness or even like sadness from an outcome you had no hand in. So I also know that there are like a lot of people that are like, hitting the bottle really hard because the Colts are bad. Like, no,
Yeah.
don't. It's hard. Football is very difficult, and it's
Yeah.
very difficult. A lot of people are sewing themselves into a corner talking about we could have drafted so and so and and it's just like, nah, man. Like injuries are a thing. Very hard. It's very difficult to find like a left tackle specifically in the NFL. Ask a lot of teams in the NFL. Like, go watch everybody else play, and on 3rd and long, their quarterbacks get lit up. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Like, everybody's quarterback's getting lit up. There are very few teams in the league that can actually protect. Minnesota and Dallas came to mind until you will go back and
Yeah.
watch and it's like, nah, maybe it's just Cowboys. Maybe it's just really a couple teams in the league that can really protect their quarterback. And again, I'm sounding the alarm, right? Like when I watch football, the defensive linemen are better athletes than the offensive linemen. Hello. This is not a good matchup. Hello. You know what I mean? You got to get the ball out of the box. That team's got better athletes than you in the box. Um, and it's crazily, Chris Ballard had talked about building the team from the trenches, right?
Yeah.
How
Exactly.
still true is it, right?
I saw a tweet, I believe, going to an article that the Eagles basically built the team that Chris Ballard was preaching about. They built that same team twice in 6 years. They had it with Carson Wentz and
Lane
they have it
Johnson.
now. Yeah. Jason Kelsey,
Yeah, I would say they have outstanding offensive lineman, anchor type,
outstanding
foundational
offensive
play. Yeah.
lineman, a generational defensive lineman. Also, Javon Hargrave, he's a really underrated guy that is having one hell of a season.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have to talk about Brandon Graham, Fletcher
Fletcher
Cox.
Cox.
They now added Limbo Joseph and Ndama Konsa, who were, a nightmare for us. And now they have them there in the backfield. They have You have your shutdown cornerback in Darius Slay. You have a solid all-around defense. But when you look at their defense, what do they excel at? What do they have that is really working? And you say, okay, they have like 9 pass rushers that can get to the quarterback. Jason Reddick also. That's what you need. When you look at the Colts, you're like, you have perhaps two or three that are good
Yeah.
pass rushers,
Yeah.
but you have Pay, who has been dealing with injuries this season. Yannick Ngakwe, who has been really inconsistent, like where he one snap he goes out and gets the strip sack off the line,
Yeah.
and then the following five he's just wiped off the play. Grover Stewart, who is, he's doing his job. He's getting double team. He's a great player, but not on that, you know, Aaron Donald level.
Yeah.
And the first Wagner, who is always solid, but again, getting mostly double teamed. And other than that, you do have some young players. You do have, Deo the Yingbo. You have Ifeadi or the Nickbo, who is also nice. Tyquan Lewis before he was injured, but when you stack up, the level of talent and the level of production with the Eagles and the Colts, you clearly like one clearly sees that we are not nearly on the same level as them.
Yeah. And I mean, I think when you come and you play for an Indiana team, this is a good segue into the Pacers. Um, the fans are a lot different than in a lot of cities. There's not a lot of what I would call fun money in Indiana. A lot of the
Hmm.
people that are going to these events are like once in a lifetime things for them, are niche happenings in their lives. Unlike a lot of, I'm from outside Chicago. I'm was raised, what I mean? I've been to bigger sports towns. Um, and I think when you get drafted by the Colts and you come here, um, the media is just like the media everywhere else, but the fans are a lot different. It's mostly an online fan base. You don't hear about fans welcoming Colts players returning. You know what I mean? That doesn't happen.
Yeah,
There's not a level of psychosis about the Colts that's an accepted thing. Like I'm thinking about the Bills, I'm thinking about the Jets, right? I'm thinking about these teams that have super hardcore loyal fan bases. I don't feel like that's the Colts fan base. I feel like it's mom and pops, it's lots of small businesses,
yeah,
and it's hard as a football player probably to stay motivated. There's probably a reason why. Um, Same thing for the Pacers. Lots of the best to come through Indiana leaves it right while they're still in the throes of their
yeah,
career, and you can name a list of Pacers a mile long. And hopefully, as we switch gears, and let's talk about these Pacers, these Indiana Pacers, these very young Indiana Pacers. What the Pacers have done in a short amount of time is unload a superstar in Demonis
yeah,
Sabonis and got in return at the very least a clear 1-for-1 trade. I would do that all day again. Sabonis for Halliburton. I'll do that. Easy
yeah,
money. And then assuming it sticks, right? Like assuming he sticks and plays for a long time, whatever. But there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to the Indiana Pacers. Like I said, who going into tomorrow's game, I think are now 10-6. Yeah, 10-6. The right now the 4 seed in the Eastern
yeah. In the
Conference.
Eastern Conference,
And I'm not saying they're going to finish there. So this isn't like we are switching over to talk about the Pacers. The Pacers are potentially good years before they were supposed to be. 2-3 years before they were supposed to be potentially, and that's a good reason to say, hey, this might not be a lottery team next year. This team could actually be I would say probably more like a 6-7 seed this year, and better
Yeah.
moving forward. Um, I I want to make sure everybody understands like O rating, that doesn't go away. So the Pacers have the best offensive rating in the NBA. That's not going away. That's something that's taught. That's like in embedded into this team now. They're going to be very difficult to beat because they're young and athletic, and they run the floor and they take good high percentage shots. Um, and a lot of what has come to the Pacers has gotten better in the offseason. So I was going to say something that it appears that the Pacers are able to do that the Colts are not is the Pacers are really good at developing talent and it either flourishing to the degree that the Colts are able to unload it and get something in return, right?
Yeah,
Or
or it sticks around.
it sticks around and it's a really consistent, really good member of your organization for a long time. Um,
Yeah, unfortunately, lately it's been you ship them, and unfortunately, you also have to wonder like where what we got in return for those superstar was meaningful, but you see like we traded away Paul George and we
mhm,
got Oladipo and Sabonis, and then basically, we turned Oladipo left amid the injury and all that, and that was the one that really disheartened me because I think that Oladipo would like he had really ingrained himself in the heart of Pacers fans, at least for me,
yeah.
like growing up watching the Pacers with Danny Granger,
Mhm.
and then Paul George, and thinking, okay, he's the guy that's going to lead us to multiple rings. Like he looked like a superstar, and then him, I always felt like I don't know if this is fair to say or not, but feeling like he betrayed us and then leaving. And I remember when like watching the trade and watching Oladipo and Sabonis, like the first thing that I thought was, who is Sabonis? Like who is this guy? And now, we traded away Sabonis and we got Tyrese Halliburton, who is perhaps the most like other than prime PG 13, PG 24 for the Pacers. He's the guy I'm the most excited about watching him play, and a guy that I actually tune in to watch him play. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what is he going to do next? And then to also have like such a promising rookie in Ben Maturin, who you're like you watch him and you think, okay, if this guy can do this in his rookie season, like I can't imagine what he will do 2 or 3 years down the road. Like what's the ceiling for him? Like where is the ceiling for him? And also watching veterans like Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, Jalen Smith, and all those guys that are really putting in work and always giving solid shifts, and not being angry to take the back seat to those young guns that you have that are of course undoubtedly the stars of the team. It's just like as I said, it seems like a really good time to be a Pacers fan,
Yeah.
and it's something that I wasn't expecting. If you asked me before the season started for the Pacers, I was like, okay, we're probably gonna be in contention for the top 3 overall pick, most likely.
Yeah.
I thought that we had the talent to put a few wins here and there where I was like, okay, I'm not sure if we are as bad as the Utah Jazz or perhaps the Spurs, but in no way I could have imagined, this record right now. But not
Yeah.
only the record, because records can be deceiving, but also the way we have been playing.
Yeah.
It's entertaining basketball to watch. Like you said, it's you tune into the Pacers game, and you're going to win or lose, you're going to be entertained,
Yeah. I mean, they're
and
doing
that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
when they break down the Pacers playing, they'll show you like, hey, most teams when a shot goes up, one guy's rebounding, four guys are running the floor. Well, look at the Pacers. Look at them all. Look at three guys rebounding. There's one guy that was trying to get a hand up, and there's one guy that got a leak out, right? And so the Pacers are like playing basketball the right way, right? And then on offense, it's not an ISO game. You have what appears to be they've got an offensive system. I know I'm kind of being cheeky about it, but like they've got like an offense. It's not just give someone the ball and have them go at it and see who can get, hit a step back three, right? They're being unselfish. Halliburton is a creator. And then you have McConnell that comes in and he might be more unselfish, right? Which is crazy because Halliburton's like the league leading assist man, right? And McConnell comes in and he's just a little more unselfish. And I think when you have two players at the point guard position that would rather give an assist than are looking for their own shot. And it's not that Halliburton's not looking to shoot. Kid averages 20 a game, man. He's out there scoring. Um, but he's got a sort of a good sense. And as long as he's healthy, and it's just I say it for everybody, as long as you're healthy and interested in basketball, um, they're going to be in a lot of games because they've got the ability to go 10, 12 deep. And there's lots of teams that they can't trust 10 players with minutes reliably. And that's why the Colts are going to win a lot of games, is because of their youthful legs. I mean, when you see guys like Nimhard out there shooting
Yeah.
confidently, right? And a Nesmith out there shooting confidently, it really makes you realize like guys like they could literally bring in anybody they want into that organization and make them a part of that organization and make them effective basketball players and professionals. And again, to speak on just what I was talking about, it's probably weird being a professional football player for the Indianapolis Colts. It's probably equally weird being an Indiana Pacer. Um, in this town, and again it's the same reason. The fans are just a little different type of fan, a very online fan base, and a fan base that has had no hope since the Malice in the Palace, right? Is
Yeah.
I haven't watched Pacers basketball and been like excited about what was happening in a long time. I haven't felt like when, for example, when I think a team wins 4 or 5 games in a row in the regular season, especially early, um, it tells me that you can win a series in the postseason because you're capable of stringing multiple good
Yeah,
nights in a
stringing
row
multiple
together.
wins together. Yeah.
And so, of course, we're gonna switch gears in our podcast. We're gonna talk about the Pacers. I'm gonna move my camera a little bit so you can see my buddy as a wood making business. Maybe my little
Hmm.
I got my little Purdue, my little Pacers, and my little Colts American flags. And obviously, like if somebody wants to buy those, you can buy those off me. They're gaudy, right? But I bought them to support my buddy's business. That's why they're there. But as we switch gears, it's not because I again am sitting here being like I'm betting all my money on the Pacers. No, I'm just saying like this is a very young team getting a lot of healthy experience, getting a lot of and winning games when you're inexperienced. It helps you become more used to doing what it takes to win, and
Yeah.
as opposed to doing what it takes to keep you paid, which is the spot that you end up in if the team's not very good. And so that's what's fun for me about the Pacers. For example, Buddy Hield. Um, I had a thought Buddy Hield's going to come here from Sacramento, which I felt like they had a good thing going there. Like I like De'Aaron Fox a lot, right? So, and I felt like Buddy Hield was going to come here. It's not going to be as live as like a Sacramento is. Who knows what Sacramento is like, right? As live as Sacramento is, he's not going to be a better version of what. And I think that he's a better version of what he was in Sacramento when I speak of Buddy Hield.
Yeah.
Um, and again, it's early, so like, but he's shooting threes right now at a high clip. And what I also see him doing is finishing at the rim, and he looks like a better athlete. And that makes me happy because that means that
Yeah.
that like one of the things that people talk about, and I hate to switch subjects like that, but like to go back to the Colts, one of the things that will stick out to me is like Quentin Nelson gets paid this mega contract and the O line as a whole regresses, right? So to switch back to the Pacers, right? A guy like Buddy Hield he's getting paid pretty well now, right? He's seen as like a threat in the NBA. And my thought process is right is there's only two ways that he could go, right? Steph Curry or Brandon Roy, right? Like either you
Yeah.
become like way better at your job to the point where like you could be a number one, or you get injured most likely and you get washed out of the league real quick. Well, he looks like a much better athlete and a but more potent offensive threat, having a much better inside outside game. And when you get a guy like that on your team, and think about all the other things the Pacers got going on, but you have like one guy in your team when people bring up like a TJ Warren, right?
Yeah.
Buddy Hield's better than TJ Warren. And then also something that is still rolling around, like you look at this Pacers team and they've got, like you said, the Miles Turner, uh, playing incredibly amidst rumors being traded. And I think that would drive anybody because when I watch Miles Turner play, I love watching Miles Turner play basketball because I honestly, there are possessions in a row defensively where he manipulates that shot. And you're like, uh, I I think he got a block on three straight possessions and they just called a foul on the fourth to break the
Yeah.
monotony up, right? Like he got a hand on that too. Right? Like Jesus, you can hand off anyone to him and they're not going up over him. He's swatting that. Um, and he is absolutely not a person that I would want to get rid of. I'd be really mad if they got rid of Miles Turner. That's a terrible
Yeah. Me
decision.
too. Yeah.
He feels like the heart and soul of your defense. He feels like he's a great defensive anchor. You need people like that. And an organizational leader as a player. Same thing with like a TJ McConnell. It's like you're saying. And then you've got just a team of young players, young shooters, young confident shooters. The three is king. You know, I really want to be both a football and basketball coach, so I watch the game played at a professional and collegiate level. You try to watch the highest levels of that being played, right? And what the Pacers are doing right now, like I said, offensively, is best in the league, and then defensively, they're young, but they have a good a good bit of size on the interior, and they have 4 or 5 players on the interior that can rotate in
Yeah.
and are just as capable of getting a hand up. Isaiah Jackson, Agoga is getting some minutes, and they'll come
Yeah.
in there and eat some fouls when teams need layups because they haven't scored in 15 possessions. But that's I think the Pacers as an organization are going to function well because Larry Bird involved. They had like a player that played at the highest of levels, at the highest of level within that organization, a head coach and GM, right? So they kind of know what it takes to make like a good professional basketball player when you had a
Yeah.
former player, right, a top 10 player all time, at head coach, at GM, and heavily involved in the organization. And then the Pacers are well coached, right? That's the thing, about the Colts, that I'll take away from this season, right? With the firing of Marcus Brady and the trading of Naheem Hines and again the firing of Frank Reich. Why not Chris Strausser,
Yeah.
right? So that bothers me, right? And instead of that, it's almost like we made a decision. It's like we could have done this, we did this instead. Like you instead of firing Chris Strausser, you hired a guy that played offensive line for you. You know what I mean? Like those aren't on the same level. You did, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
obviously I'm running out of stuff to talk about with the Pacers because it's just early in the season and haven't had
Yeah.
any
We're
really
still
significant
missing.
injuries left. You played 16 games. It's about a sixth of the season.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We still have like plenty of basketball left to be played.
Yeah. And I'm with you too, because if you go back and you look, the first 3 games of the year, they looked rough. And you kind of wondered like, oh, they could just be really young and bad. And lots of these guys could just like not make it. man. And then it just got over. It feels like, I don't know about you, but it feels like that got switched 3-4 games in. I think, and again, obviously it's a lot of it has to do with Ben Matherin being a lot more confident and a lot more of a scoring threat early than I think a lot of people anticipated. 6'6", 210 reminds you of who?
6'6", 210.
MJ. I'm not saying he's MJ,
Nah,
but
yeah,
but
way too early too.
but plays above the rim. He's 6'6", right? Off the bench averaging 19 points a game as a rookie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Obviously, it's too early to call it, but plenty to be hopeful about when it comes to the Indiana Pacers. That's one of the reasons that we want to talk about them, because I think at times when you're talking about an organization that's going through what the Colts are going through, it's not entertaining. It's not fun. You know what I mean? It's like I sat here last time we talked and I hang my head and I'm saying, like, I hate calling for somebody's job. Like, I want to work in this league. It's difficult to probably get a job in a league where you've sat and called for other people's job for years. That's not a great look, right? And then to have it
yeah.
happen is such an insane, like, what? It's probably like 2-3 days where I sat around like, he didn't really get fired, right? This is like a deep troll from the internet, right? Because on if you really think about it, before the last game that Frank Reich coached, if somebody told you the odds of Frank Reich being the Colts head coach in 2030 are 500 to 1, would you have bet every dime you had knowing that? Like, the odds are insane that he's going to get to keep his job no matter what. Yeah. Yeah, I'd have bet that. If the information prior to that game would have told me that he'd have been here for the next 10 years, I'd have bet all day. But then that game happened. And the Colts is the worst offensive outing. I can't remember the last time the Colts were that bad on offense. And it got the head coach fired. And I think
Yeah,
ultimately, that game is what got him fired. And so nobody is, fortunately, people will ask me privately and not like shitting on me publicly on social media, right? For the last time I was on a podcast, I was here sitting here calling for another man's job, right? And then the next time you're on here, you're like, oh, you didn't deserve it. No, like, that's kind of why I felt bad, is because I'm like, I don't ever do that. So if I'm doing it, I
yeah,
have a feeling it's coming. Like, oh shit, that's a shitty feeling. That's just the truth. No, I don't want that to be I want him to right the ship. I want him to light a fire under people's ass. I want him to turn Matt Pryor into the man that he could be. You know what I mean? But apparently that's
yeah,
can't do that. So, you know, Bernard Raymond it is, I guess.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
Pacers got a big game tomorrow, which will be Hump Day, Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, aka the biggest party day in Indiana, in the bars, is the day before Thanksgiving. I don't know about obviously where you're from. That's not how that works, but I know in the night before Thanksgiving is the biggest alcohol sales night in like I know in Indianapolis for sure. Um, but yeah, the Pacers got a big game tomorrow at home against the Wizards, I believe.
yes. Against the Timberwolves, I believe that.
Timberwolves.
Yeah,
Timberwolves, I lied. Who
yeah.
are by the way over 500. So they're not terrible. Um, but let's see.
It's gonna be a good one. Then we against the Nets.
Hmm?
After that, that one's definitely going to be entertaining. No, it's Timberwolves, Nets, then the Clippers, then the Lakers, then the Kings. You the Jazz, Blazers, Warriors, Timberwolves. That's like
Oh wow, that's a
it's
slate, huh? So
yeah, it's
the Nets, Clippers, Lakers, Kings, Jazz,
a
Blazers,
seven game
Warriors.
seven game road trip. Yeah, that's tough. That's probably going to,
So
that's probably going to
it's funny
show
we're
you
gonna come
like,
back here and saying the Colts are 10-22.
yeah,
Because
no, or
that's how it works.
it could go the other way, and it's like
Yeah.
you're competitive and you win, at least like 3 or 4 of those, and you're like, okay, we went through probably the toughest stretch of the season,
Yeah.
and we're still looking pretty. But yeah, it's like, with the Pacers, it's like win or lose, you're just, you're watching your young guys develop,
Hmm.
and that's also the luxury that gives thinking this is I mean, this is realistically not our year.
No.
Next year probably won't be either.
Mm-mm.
So it's not
Boston's
like,
tough, man.
yeah, it's not like you're playing for the title right now. It's not like you're saying, okay, this is my title window. The pressure is on. In the end, all you're trying to watch, is watching your young players
Yeah.
develop some chemistry between them and see what they got. And win or lose, you're just like, hey, Ben Maturin's looking great. Tyrese Halliburton just got named Player of the Week. He's averaging 20 and 10, which is unheard of a Pacers player. You're like, Ben Maturin is leading rookies in scoring, and he's coming off the bench. Isaiah Jackson is just had 2, 3 highlight reel plays last week, and goes on and on. And you're just like, overall, win or lose, you want to watch the Pacers right now.
Yeah, because you're
And
watching
that's,
a
yeah.
team full of players making plays, right? It's not one guy or they're missing one guy, right? And that's what the difference is. It feels like the Colts are always missing somebody, right? And you're never at full strength, right? Well, that's how it feels watching the Pacers. It feels like they're young and they got a lot of energy and they go, 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 go. And it's exciting. It's a fun time to be a sports fan. I mean, again, this isn't to take anything away of my fanhood of the Colts. Like I love the Colts. I just think that you got to be realistic. You got to look at the rest of the season and say like, a lot of tough outs on that schedule left. This could be a real bad season. And I think it's in our best interest, especially because you and I are both Pacers fans. We've been Pacers fans for a long time. And obviously, as much as I love the Colts, I want to talk about something that there's room to be positive about, right? Learning from the misses. So we appreciate y'all listening to us talk sports, talk about Indiana professional sports as it refers to the Pacers and Colts. Again, if you like our content, please like and subscribe to help other people find this content when you hear it. Let me know. You can find me with the collapse of Twitter. I try to maintain the same username everywhere else. You can find me on just about every other social media website at Likely Alien. If you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns about the content that we produce, you can please reach me there or leave a comment. Hell, maybe I'll read it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. And we'll
Yeah,
see you.
happy Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, likewise, brother. We'll see you I guess after the Monday night game, right?
Yeah.
Try to do this on Tuesdays. Why not, right?
Yeah. Seems nice.
Yeah. See you, everybody.